Good morning, my friend. This is a gloomy but very comfortable morning up here in the middle of nowhere.
Good for you. Today here in Overland Park, it's September 27th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. Listen to the Crushing Iron Podcast, episode 718. No, 717.
717. And, yeah. I mean, it's the same date here. It's just probably a little bit different temperature.
That's true. We'll call it 17. No, it is. I saw somebody post in our closed Facebook group, which we'll be rocking a Q&A today, talking about, hoodie and shorts is like a spiritual time here in the Midwest. And yesterday I was in full protest because it's going to be 92 this weekend. And earlier, late last week, it was all hoodies and shorts weather. And once I go hoodie and shorts weather, it's on.
Yeah, there's no going back.
Okay, there's no going back. Like I'm not getting up. I'm not checking the weather. I'm not going to see what it is. I'm just wearing a hoodie, shorts, and flip-flops. I've been waiting for it for the last 6 months. So I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
So I walked to the house yesterday, and it was a little toasty. And you know what I did? I left it on because I'm in full protest. I want my fall weather, and I want it now, and I want it to stay. So I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to go to just the t-shirts and shorts and flip-flops. I'm wearing my hoodie. I'm wearing as much as possible. Thankfully, Hayden is back in hockey, so you got to wear a hoodie in there because it's always a little chilly in the rink. But yeah, it's hot this week. There's not a cloud in the sky today. It's gonna be about mid 80s. Still, it's better than the summertime. It's nice temperatures all around. Football season is in full swing. Hockey season, preseason. Not that anybody cares about that.
Nobody cares.
You got the Kona championships coming up. A lot of racing left to do. Some busy racing weekend, racing coming up this weekend as well. But yeah, it's a great time. It's hard to believe. It's almost October, which for you baseball fans is a pretty important time of year with the playoffs. If anybody even follows baseball anymore,
I follow playoffs.
But yeah,
back to your hoodie, man.
I think time.
Back to your hoodie, though. I think if anybody has the resilience to fight Mother Nature, I think it's you.
I mean, I do it. I wear flip-flops year round.
I know. But yeah, we're going to be a balmy 80 this weekend, man.
Oof.
Yeah.
Balmy.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Watch the grass.
Wisconsin has a bye, so I'll just be probably swimming all weekend. I don't have any grass.
You should. Oh yeah, that's right. You don't have any grass. You just got sandy beach, clear water, and nothing but time. Yeah, it is. It's a fun time of year, and even as we alluded to last week, with the end of year for some people, getting close to the end of the year for others with our late season Stay Focused podcast. It's always an exciting time. We appreciate you tuning in today. If it's your first time, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general. Tons of valuable. So we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a very wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level athletes, the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to world championships, and everyone in between and from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also utilize our Facebook group like we will today. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group, answer multiple question, and just answer it. Takes like 2 seconds. We'll let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic community, solid resource, and a very oftentimes overcomplicated sports with a lot of information out there that is a lot of noise and not always a lot of substance. It's a solid, safe space to get actionable information from seasoned veterans and beginners alike to hopefully avoid some of the major and frequent pitfalls we all kind of succumb to along our endurance journey. But that's it. We don't do sponsors. We don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah, very complicated sport, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't.
It shouldn't be.
Speaking of complicated, can you imagine how much more complicated our intro would be if we had to flow right into a sponsorship? In And Mike, that reminds me, I have been getting the best sleep in my life the last 3 months ever since I decided to use Zip carbon plated mattresses. They are our sponsor. It's like it makes me cringe. I just got I think I just broke out in hives. Having to do that every single one. So yeah, I love our flow. I love that it's genuine. I love that it's authentic. It's hard to explain to people why we do a podcast and when we don't do sponsors and ads, but it has allowed us to love it and keep doing it and do things like today where we get questions and we can answer them openly and honestly without fear of retribution from a sponsorship or marketing agreement where we're going to hurt someone's feelings. Because you know what, we're just going to talk like how we feel, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I still think we should come up with fake sponsors once in a while, just for fun.
Well, we did, we did entertain the thought of only using non-triathlon related small businesses.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast is brought to you by Freddy's Hardware Store. If you are local to the, Peoria, Illinois area, check out 4th Street and Jeremy's Hardware Store and Compost Facility with a discount code.
Compost Facility.
Compost. It's like, and just do stuff like that. We're trying to grow small businesses. We're not trying to go the big box companies. Like, give us the small mom and pop store,
Yeah.
Joe's Flowers, or Lay's, engraving Etsy shop. That's what we're looking for.
Well,
trying to help the people.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that idea, and actually just picking someone at random that has no idea we're doing it and do it for a while and see if anybody ever finds out. Funny. I mean, do it legit though. I don't want to slam somebody. I want to help their business.
That would be interesting. Use our very, very modest and small influence to
create a phenomenon.
To create a phenomenon. We call it free sponsorships. We are sponsoring other people. It's not really not half bad. We'll have to put some thought into that.
Yeah, just give it back to the
before
world.
we hop into. That's a lot of thought we could go into. But yeah, I kind of like that idea. Give them back to the people. Before we go into today's Q&A, we posted a little bit of a Q&A like we usually do about once a month every 4 to 6 weeks. Answer as many as we can before we hop into those. We had some really solid questions today.
Oh yeah.
Some pretty stellar ones. Do you have anything to get off your chest before we get started?
No, I'm fine.
No, you're ready to roll? Yeah, airing of grievances. Let it flow.
You sure? I could do it.
Yeah.
You don't want me?
Go for it. I know. We probably don't need to do that. Yeah, let's forget that I asked. Jeff Lawn. Jeff, get off my lawn. With over 700 podcasts now, is there any advice, training, or information you gave during your early podcast that you look back on and go, that was really bad advice? That's a great question.
All of it.
Yeah, definitely not. I don't know that I have a huge one. I mean, I feel like I think every coach should change or grow and tweak things here and there. Do I have anything major to go back and do I ever think I've given out bad advice? No, I don't. Now, maybe for an individual who maybe took it the wrong way, sure. The only thing I would probably change is the wording or the wording of one of our original podcasts and focuses when we talked about, run slow to get fast. I think slow it's a hard concept to get people to kind of wrap their brain around. How does that translate when it really should be, run easier to get faster, which, they're pretty much one and the same. If you run easier, you're usually going to run slower. But that's, I think, just a small little change of adjectives that I would use to change. But yeah, I think I've pretty much stood. I feel like I'm pretty similar on my swim. My swim approach has definitely not changed. If anything, I'm more concrete in my belief system when it comes to swimming. Cycling, that's still pretty much the same. I've always been a double ride, lots of riding, big gear kind of guy with, weaving in some other things. So yeah, been doing that as well. Running, I've never been a long run guy. I've always been about frequency. I think the only thing that has changed maybe not dramatically, is I've always been, it's more about frequency and consistency than it is about, doing one really, really, really long run and a few other things in there, and, so if you had the choice to do 40 miles a week and you could spread it over 6 runs or spread it over 3 runs, much better. It's going to be 6 every time. But I would say that one of the biggest changes I probably made this last year was in the way that I don't even know that I didn't make this public, but it's also not a huge secret, is that I would say that, I've changed up running even more. So, and not so much removing it, but giving a little more rest in between even just regular 30, 40, 50-minute runs. Also not just not having to do super long runs like a lot of people do, but also not even doing my version of a long run every week. That was something that I did this year with a lot of athletes for full distance races, is we didn't do back-to-back weekends of long runs. So for me, once, like the final build to an Ironman for a lot of athletes. And the other weeks, it was just kind of maybe 2 mid-distance runs. So that's probably been a huge change, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say that's bad advice or information. I think it's more of an evolution of what you already do. Just, it's kind of like taking the same recipe, but you're kind of tweaking tweaking how you make it. And it's worked out really, really well.
I think that's a great point. I mean, the temptation for change these days is very, very high across the board. I mean, there's always a new philosophy out every day on something, and it's almost impossible to miss. And I think honestly, we've been very true to pretty true to the basic philosophy of things over time. I mean, there is adaptations and little changes here and there. I mean, I still look at this sport the same. I mean, I think you need to do a lot of cold plunges and saunas and meditate and be in the moment and warm up and just be consistent and be mentally tough. And forgive yourself occasionally. So seriously, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, I
think we've gotten softer in our age.
I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about that. Yeah, it's softer. I don't know about, but I don't know if you can squash the tenacity all the way. I still feel like I'm forgiving and understanding for sure, but I still think people. I mean, the bottom line is this is a hard sport, and you have to be tough in it, and you have to stretch yourself and go through some pains along the way. So I mean, I don't think you can forget that.
No, I agree with you. The next one is from Alan. This is directly for you.
Oh boy.
Are you doing the Wisconsin 210.9 next year?
The Wisconsin is that the 70.3 in the full?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, nothing is off the table for me in 2024, but
that is the teaser of all teasers.
It's true. I mean, it could go off the rails, or it could just be very chill. But I have one thing I've decided is that I'm not going to decide until January.
Right. Yeah, you said that. Yeah, I like that. And you're staying true to it.
Yeah.
With there, as much temptation is out there, you're staying true to your word, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, because I'm on a nice roll right now. It has no agenda other than feeling happy and healthy.
I like that. I like that a lot. From Jessica, how much recovery time should you take after completing a full Ironman? ? Exclamation point. So this is a serious one. Yeah. Yes, it depends, but because it also really depends on like when it is in your season. And is it your last race of the season, or is it in like May and then you're racing again afterwards? Into season full, like I'll just use Wisconsin as an example, and then maybe Texas as an example for athletes who raced and then had other races this year. The people who I had that just did Wisconsin, I give them a pretty like standard first week. You don't do shit, and you're not allowed to run for 10 days, period. Like there's no point. There's 0 point. You just ran a marathon. There's no point to even like approach or injuring yourself by running. You can swim and bike starting the second week. And then the third week is choice. So really I give 3 weeks of like no structure, which drives people crazy, but it's pretty telling. The ones that want to get back, or they'll work out for 2 days and they'll take the rest of the week off. And you're like, I told you, you're not ready. Like Monday, easy swim. Tuesday, bike, and you're like, they're trying to get back in routine and they want it bad. They don't want to lose their fitness. Wednesday, off. Thursday, off. Friday, off. Saturday, you're like, you ain't ready, which is totally fine. Take the time. I mean, honestly, in the year, take a month. Relax. Do what you want to. Do something different. Bike ride if you want. Swim if you want. Run here and there. Do whatever. But, I mean, in my experience, it takes at least 3 weeks, sometimes 4, to recover from a Ironman. And I also think if you really nail and run a really, really hard marathon, it also takes 3 to 4 weeks, because you are absolutely smoked. You're smoked. You're done. Because the thing about marathon is you're going to be able to run harder for those 26 miles versus what you'd be able to run in the marathon. Now, if you're doing like an early season race, then it really depends on what your races are going to be like the rest of the year. So maybe it's just 2 weeks, and then you start to sprinkle in a little bit of structure, but still keeping it pretty lax and keeping volume very, very, very low. Because what I think people oftentimes forget is that a race is also a training session. And you're not just recovering from the race, but you're also recovering from the significant amount of stress surrounding the race, travel, food. You probably ate like shit right afterwards, and all the training in the 6 to 8 to 10 weeks leading up to it. Just because you taper for 2 weeks doesn't mean it all went away and you race and it's just a race and you can start over. So I think that's, a huge piece of it too. But I mean, take as much time as you need. As most people, one of the biggest issues a lot of people have is that they, quote unquote, don't want to lose their fitness. And they put way too much pressure on themselves to keep things, at a certain level. But what that usually leads to is total stagnation, injury, and overtraining. And you're not going to get any better because it's not sustainable, nor does your body adapt by doing the same thing and holding the same time. You have to have periods of detraining and getting unfit in order to get even fitter the next time. So I would take all those factors into account.
Yeah, I've gone round and round about this, and I remember, early in the day when I would do my first Ironman, I was like, man, I feel like this the fatigue factor lasts for, a couple months maybe. I mean, it's up and down or whatever, but like this time I basically like did exactly what you said. I took that whole next week and it was just basically nothing. And then for me, it was like, there's so much fitness gained, and I've always felt like after an Ironman, if you can, my goal is always kind of to keep swimming, because it's the hardest for me. And it's one of those things where, man, I just, had a massive swim in a congested, competitive environment. So that probably made me a better swimmer. So I try to keep going, but I went the next week, I just started swimming like 500 yards. It might sound stupid, but I was getting in the lake doing it, and just kind of, it felt really good. And that sort of translated into short runs. I think a lot of people get done with Ironman, and I see it all the time with athletes. It's so weird. Like, they race Sunday, and then on Tuesday, I'll see a 11 minute and 23 second run or something like that. Because I think a lot of us are like, well, my swim was pretty decent, my bike was all right, but my run so I got to get my run back. Or it's like, it's almost like a, I guess, self-imposed, punishment. So get back out there and prove that you can run or something. And your body always says, nah, I'm not ready for this, or I'm not ready to go. So I've just been trying to go 30 minutes every day or every other day. And I've been wanting to go further, but I've just been holding it, and it just feels so good. I know I have that, it's like I feel like I'm really in a good spot running, but I'm not pushing it over. And I'm just kind of doing that thing where I always like to leave something for tomorrow. And I'm trying to build that habit right now. And cycling's always tough for me because I just never want to get on my bike after an Ironman for some reason, especially this year.
Yeah, I might have read one of the most impressive things ever in Training Peaks this morning. One of our athletes was signed up for a 400-mile bike relay this last weekend and was just going to do a part of it. Mm-hmm. And then her teammates all backed out. And so she thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it and see how far I can get. So she was preparing for, a 50-mile ride. She ended up doing 200 miles. And she got on her bike yesterday. And I said, that might be the most impressive thing I've read all year long. Yeah. That you actually wanted to get on your bike and your crotch wasn't so sore you didn't feel like you were sitting on a crowbar. I mean, that's impressive. But yeah, a lot of people don't want to get on their bike, especially for like a late season race, because more than likely you're about to get to the point to where those rides are going to be inside. And that just brings back like a whole new level of mental energy. So yeah, I mean, it's always better to listen to your body. I've told this story a million times. I'll tell it again. It's like a lot of times you think you're ready and you're not. The best thing is to listen to your body. When I did Ironman Arizona in 2011, I had went 10:30, had a great time. It took like 3 hours off my previous Ironman. I was riding high. Took 1 week off. Monday morning, got up, went to the YMCA, and we're talking the Concord Road Y in Brentwood. We're talking gradual stairs leading to the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Gradual, not like steep, right? Not like the steep stairs that make you question your fitness level when you're walking up and down the convention center in Monona Terrace to check your bags in. You're like, how am I going to do an Ironman when I just walk up 2 flights of stairs and my quads are sore and I'm breathing heavy? I got my swim bag. I'm like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to get back to work, baby. Next year, it's my year. Made it to the doors and thought, you know what sounds good? A hot tub. Because I was like, I am not ready. I got to the doors and I thought I was ready. And it wasn't just the soreness in my legs. I think it was when you get to like the edge of the water or the door, you're like, okay, it sounds great and sounds awesome. And man, I would love to get better, but damn it, I don't know that I've got it in my head right now to already get back to work.
Yep. That's awesome.
And so I went to the hot tub.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where, and I think this is also an important thing, kind of like a side note, is that a lot of people chase like the word peaking or chase the word great to be like once or twice, a year. And that's really, really, really hard. The best thing you can do is just try to be really, really good all year. Because then you increase your opportunity to be great when you need to, and you don't have to worry about the ebbs and flows or the chasing of greatness or the chasing of the perfect taper. Because if you're just kind of like really, really good, and that's just kind of the way we train athletes too, is like we don't do super long builds. We don't put in 20 weeks of 20 hours. It's just like, hang in this range where you're getting pretty good, and you can rip off a race, on short notice. That's when you get really, really good. And also takes a lot of the pressure away to be like way, way into a lot of things. And so I think that's a good approach.
Yeah. I just, one more thing on that. I think, at least for me, the number one challenge after Ironman is kind of not giving it up, So yeah. Like you said, the hot tub, but like for me, it's been, I said 10, 15 minute swims in a coldish lake. And I've been doing saunas. I mean, because I think we underestimate the amount of inflammation that could be residing in our body. And I've noticed over time as I get older, I mean, there's these chronic inflammation situations in my life. So I'm kind of like addressing that. And when I think about, getting in the water and then, sweating things out and stuff like that, for me, it's sort of a passive exercise in a way. I mean, you sit in a sauna, your heart rate goes up, and you're sitting in a cold bath or a cold shower. It kind of forces you to kind of get your body working to warm up and stay warmer. So it's like it's good for your internal organs and all that kind of stuff. And I think that for me, it's always about being as healthy as possible. And I think you can get trapped in a chronic inflammation issue the longer you're in the sport. So for me, that's what it is just kind of doing things that are good for your body. They don't have to be VO2 rides and, going out and crushing hills and stuff like that. You just need to kind of let your body take the fitness you gained and recover and be stronger coming out of it.
Agreed. 100%. Next question from Wild Bill Calkins.
There he is.
When is the right time to buy a quote unquote high-end TT bike? Next year, I'll be 7 years into the sport and have progressed maybe the top 10 to 15% of my age group. I currently ride a 2014 Scott Plasma. Cycling is my weakest of the three. Listen, we shouldn't be the guys that tell you how to spend your money. Having said that, you're not going to win or lose a race or jump up another 2 to 3% in your age group by buying a new bike. You're just not. Yes, cycling bikes, have come, fairly far, but there are a lot of athletes still rocking it on like if I could go back and grab the old Cervelo P3 I had before they did all the new stuff, I would take it and run with it and put a tri-rig brake on the front like I used to have and use that until I retired. That's how good those bikes are. If you're talking like a minute or two, so I would more so invest in training and, maybe the right wheel set for the right race. I would look at maybe changing spend some money on changing up your front end to make that more. A lot of stuff you can do now, as long as your bike is compatible, you can really configure your front end, your base bars, your air bar set up. They got these new crazy extensions where you can be really, really aero and really, really comfortable doing things. I as a coach, I've done this for such a long period of time. The feedback that you hear on buying a new bike because you think it's going to be better, because especially if you're on a bike, I mean, you can speak to this, especially if you're on a bike that just fits you really, really, really well. I would be very, very careful in changing, because it's usually 50-50. You might hate your new bike, and it's not like you can return it and get a new one. You're stuck with it. Same thing goes for run shoes, right? You find the pair that works, buy 10, because shoe companies change them all the time. People, I think I'm going to change up shoes. Hate them. Injuries, niggles, all these things pop up. Same thing with bikes, because they're all so different now. So I would look at first, and again, if you want to drop 10K, it's your money, dude. Live your life, do your thing. But I would look at the right wheel set, right? Maybe changing up tubes, tires, going tubeless, or looking at latex tubes, making sure you got the right side tire set up. One of the bigger benefits of some of the newer bikes is that they do allow for a wider tire, which is more beneficial and faster. I mean, that's honestly, if I'm making an argument for a new bike, that's my number one argument, is that they allow for larger clearance to ride bigger tires, which is better rolling resistance and a more comfortable ride. Outside of that, from an aerodynamic standpoint, you can change up your cockpit and get most of the way. Change up your wheel set, get most of the way. If you don't have a power meter, get a power meter on your bike. Do all those things, especially if the bike fits you great. But if you are going to go out and look for a bike, you got to make sure without a shadow of a doubt it's going to fit you the exact coordinates like you had before. Shoulders aren't too close, elbows aren't too far out. Your stack and reach is the same, and basically they're just taking this brand new bike. The fit corners be the exact same as your current Scott Plasma, but even then it's going to be different because bikes handle different, wheels handle different. So it's just one of those things that a lot of people do it and they realize they make a mistake. And so I would just be same with run shoes. It's always like 50-50. So just be very, very specific and careful when you are making that kind of decision.
Yeah. I always talk about my transition from road bike to TT bike. I bought mine off of Craigslist for $1,200, and for the first 6 months or so, I just absolutely hated that bike for similar reasons that you're talking about. It was just so different. It felt different. It was stiffer, the whole 9 yards, and then I ended up riding that bike for my first 7 Ironman, and then I got the new version of it, and I haven't beat that time since, And so I think the point is I do think that TT bikes, I've ridden both back and forth, and I think they have their advantages both ways. But like my old bike, so I said it was stiffer than my road bike, but then I got the new TT bike, and that was way stiffer in the carbon. It was so it's been a different adjustment for me still. In fact, I had my old bike. My old bike was in storage for almost 2 years, and it showed up this summer, and I was seriously thinking about riding it at Wisconsin, but there was just too many complications with gearing and wheel sets and things like that. So I just decided to roll with it, but I still kind of have a craving for that old one. It was something about it. I tried to set up the new one similarly, and it just never did it. But I mean, I like the new bike, but it's just different, like you're saying. And for me, it doesn't feel like to me, it was a big handling issue. The other one was just, I don't know. There's something there, and I couldn't figure it out. But the point, I guess, is that if you're going to buy a bike off of Craigslist, make sure the description has a lot of technical data in it. Know you're buying it from somebody that knows what the hell they're doing and taking care of their bikes. But it was, or if Craigslist is even around, I don't even know. But the $1,200 bike really, for 7 years, it was perfect.
Grass is not always greener. In fact, it's AstroTurf. Next question from I think this is gonna be a hot topic. From Danny Balos, maybe. What is your opinion on red carpet finish line etiquette? I was told.
Oh God.
Because you're like Matthew McConaughey at the Oscars. Like, you take your sweet ass time from the start to the finish. I was told after crossing the finish line by another finisher that I probably ruined her finish line photos. I was giving effort on the carpet to get a time I was after, and happened to catch a person right at the finish line who was putting on a show. Should I have backed off? And we got a lot of comments, even though they weren't directed. We got a lot of people comments in favor. A lot of people saying, "No, you definitely should have backed off." Let me just give it to you straight. In my opinion, who gives a fuck? First of all, you might have ruined her finish line photos, so you don't even know if they were. Here's my thing. If you want the red carpet for yourself and you want to be able to put on a show, and you're doing it for that reason, you want everybody else to feel comfortable slowing down, go back to mass starts. Because the problem that I see with this, and I'm not a guy who frankly gives a shit about my finisher pick. But if you want to go back to where you can take your time, go right ahead, take your space, take the limelight, do your thing, do a cartwheel or hashtag this or throw up some gang signs, whatever you want to do it. But if you want that freedom, go back to mass starts. Because now you're not going to lose to somebody in an age group that started 10 minutes, because that's what you see now. You finished, you have no idea where you are. Oh, well, not everybody's that. But so what? So it's better for those in the middle of the pack and the back of the pack than the front of the pack. That's what you're saying. So what happens is you're telling somebody who's racing, who's trained just as long as you have for 6 to 8 months, right? That's trying really, really hard, like it sounded like Danny was, to finish out the race and get the time they wanted. You're telling them that your photo shoot and your photo op is more important than them giving their all and doing their best on race day. And you might say, but it's just a couple seconds. Who's that for you to judge? Going sub 12, going sub 13. Who's also to say that athlete B isn't racing as hard as they can because they don't have any idea. They know they're in spot like 4 to 5 to 6 or 7. Go through the list of like top 1 to top 20. Sometimes they're separated by seconds. So let's say you're going for a time, you're going for a slot allocation, you're going for a podium or whatever it is, and you got somebody trying to put on a show because whatever, that's what people do. And not all people, some people. And you stop and wait, and because you're being the nice guy, and then you finish and you look up the results, and guess what? You missed out on a podium by 2 seconds. Those 2 seconds because you went to the side to make sure someone can get an Oscar nomination for their finishing photo op. Are you going to be pissed? I'd be livid at myself, really, for not finishing. Finish hard. It is your race. You have just as much right to finish because you don't know who's coming behind you. Now, the only time I feel like that is not kosher is if you, like a lot of times you'll see like the age group men who might be finishing in and around the same time as the female winner. And a lot of times you'll see that the age group male like kind of let up to allow them to like, break the tape and have that photo, because that's a pretty important photo op, breaking the tape and having your day. Outside of that, please stop worrying so much about what somebody else needs, because you know what, your needs are just as important. And why should you slow down? Because if that's what you've trained for, then do it. And if all they've trained for is to finish and do their special whatever it is, a lane dance at the finish line and get some, great photo ops for Facebook, that's not your problem.
Man,
bring on the hate mail. It's just a fact.
No,
if you want that and you want to know where everyone is in your age group, and you can turn around and look behind you and see there's nobody else coming, so you're not going to get past because you all started at the same time. Because you can do it then. I'll just sit and wait. Do your thing. I got plenty of time. No one's coming. The look around. No one's coming. But until that changes, live your life, run your race.
I'm just saying, I was doing a lot of self-reflecting during that soliloquy there. I had
like you do on the fucking red carpet.
Yeah, well, right. But first of all, I wanted to. It flashed up a memory of mine. My second favorite finisher, Bick, but it's close. But it was in the Rev 3 days when I was doing that race in the pouring rain.
It's behind you.
He was in front of me.
Oh, so, right. He was
so I was chasing him down. We started, it was an age group start, wave start. So I knew I had to get that guy, but we were just blasting down. It was an Olympic. So I'm blasting down the finish line. It's pouring rain. Our faces are just distorted, and I'm, like 2 feet behind him. So that was cool. But secondly, I totally agree with you. And I've kind of turned into like sort of enjoy the finish line guy. I used to kind of run through it and, because that's when I was getting but it's so relative because I was closer to what you're talking about, and had better races or whatever. But last few races I've kind of had fallen apart. So I think I'm in the time range where nobody's really competing for the podium, A, and B, I see people along the way and I just like to thank them. And, but one thing I always do is before I take off stop hugging people or whatever, I'll look back to see who's coming and I'll let them go and just have their moment. So I actually have that on video for proof. So
listen, you're different.
I'm different
because with your finish
unique.
Comes a lot of paparazzi. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like Taylor Swift, walking in and wanting something and stealing someone else's, birthday party, because she was there at the same time. No one's going to give a shit about the person's birthday. It could be a sweet 16. Everybody's there. Everybody's excited. It's your day. It's all about you, and right when the dad unveils your brand new, 2-door Beamer for the 16-year-old who probably couldn't, park a freaking Hot Wheel in a Ziploc bag. Here comes in rolling Taylor Swift, and everybody's head turns and no one sees it and no one cares. That's very similar to how it is when you cross the finish line. So I think what you're doing is being considerate of everyone else. For the rest of us, dude, do your thing. Seriously, male or female, run your race. And if you want to stop. But if you don't, it's not your responsibility to make everyone else's photo op the best. You're there to run your race. You paid the amount of money you paid. Get out there and lay it down. I got no problem with that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm even irritated it's even suggested.
Well, I do have to say I was watching. A lot of times I'll watch my athletes coming across Ironman on the live stream, and I was watching it, and there are some super, super cringy moments at the finish line, I'll just say. And I mean, whether it's like the worm or whatever people are doing. Anyway, but
me, look at me.
Yeah, look at me. Yeah, it's 16 hours and 30 minutes. Oh, first of all, I want to just say the amount of people blasting down that finish line after 16-hour Ironman is amazing to me. It's like, where was that?
Yeah, it's the epitome of the negative split, right? It's the 10K walk followed by the 40-yard dash.
Yeah. So the one thing I wanted to say about it is, like, as I was watching it, it occurred to me that I think this is probably some kind of music licensing problem with Ironman or whatever, but they don't have the sound anymore on the finish line, or at least they didn't Sunday. They had their own, like, cheese ball music playing over the top of the, the crowd cheering and the music that's in the crowd at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you could hear the announcer cut in every once in a while, Robbie Bruce finishing. But, yeah, so that kind of just bummed me out. I don't know. It's too bad that they can't just let the environment play. Because, maybe that's just me. But
listen, if you go back to a mass start or have a...
Can we just turn it into a party again, man? This is getting, ridiculous.
Just go ahead and rock it and do your own thing. Or have your own special finishing shoot. Have your finished photo booth.
Hey, I got a question for you, though.
Look.
You could have a mass start at Chattanooga or no with the river?
No.
Couldn't do it?
No.
Even if you timed out, you jumped in about 200 yards earlier and you kind of had a floating mass start?
Yeah, there's no way. You'd have to put them no.
You'd have a line of buoys with a rope and everybody be smashed up against them like a concert.
I mean, you have one in Wisconsin, easy.
Oh, in Wisconsin? Well, but I'm just saying, I don't think everybody could do it, but it's unfortunate. Maybe they could do masser starts, because we used to do wave starts in the river at
that's true.
You could do that. The current isn't that strong.
Yeah, I'm sure you could, but the problem here lies is that mass starts are just so unsafe, Michael.
Oh, that's true.
They're just they're incredibly unsafe. Anyway, next question. In case you didn't know how I feel about that. Yeah. Christina, how do you move past a DNF from a mental perspective, specifically one that was out of your control, and how to try not to allow it to affect going into your next races? Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the most important things is to really try your best to not try too hard to forget it, and to try to move on too quick. Right. And to try to force yourself into it because of whatever. I think remembering it is fine, because a lot of times it can be fuel. Yes, it's irritating. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it's insanely disappointing. Yes, especially when it may or may not be someone's fault. But then go back into regular life. That shit happens all the time. Something happens that may or may not be your fault, but it impacts you in a great way. What do? Stew on it for a year? No. Adapt. Pivot. Move on. Don't sit with it forever. But you can also use it as fuel for your fire, right? To move the next time. And I think that's an important piece to it as well, is don't try to forget it. In fact, leave the sticker on your bike. Remind yourself, man, I trained, because the reason you're mad, right? And the reason you're upset and the reason you're frustrated is because you feel like, and I coach you, and so I know, you trained really well. Taper, nailed. Swim, awesome. Bike was going fantastic. So you did everything right. So the reminder shouldn't be of how bad the day went and how the unlucky, bike issue that happened. What you'd remember is I'm doing things right. And I know I can get in good shape. So now I just gotta wait a little bit longer to do it again. And I think that's a great place to be in, to know to know you figured out something that worked, to know that you can do well, to know that you were doing well, but then to use that as a reminder. It's I was there. God, I was there. And now all I want to do is I want to keep going. I want to get back there again. To use that as a reminder. Yeah, DNFs happen. DNSs happen. Bike accidents happens. Flats happen. Nutrition. And it all happens. Just happens. You got a flat and you're on the road for 40 minutes. Should it fuel you with vengeance and anger for the next year? No. Should it make you throw on gator skins on your tires? No. Should it leave you kind of low level pissed and aggravated? I'm fine with that. But don't let it propel you too far into two different directions, right? You can't get down to the woe is me, because a lot of people will sit on that shit for a month. Oh, it was just, I can't believe this happened to me. And then a whole month goes by, and guess what? No one cares, and you just lost a month of training. Yeah. Right? And so I can speak to you specifically because I'm training. Now you're having some of your best runs ever in prep for a marathon. So things are good, right? Things are great. So you just have to, I think, take that, and also don't get too far in one direction or the other. I'm going to kill it. I'm getting back. I'm racing next week, right? I'm racing next week. And then don't also get, God, I can't believe this happened to me. That stuff always happens to me. I just have the worst luck. And you're like, oh my God. Because we all know people like that. It's always everyone else's fault. Woe is me. The world's out to get me. When the rest of us could probably say that too, because we all live in our kind of our own reality, but the rest of us choose to wake up, move on, and figure it out.
Yeah. That's I mean, I know that's a tough one. I mean, I can't speak to it directly, but I did have thoughts. I thought maybe this year was going to happen. It was going to be similar, but really, I think the other thing is it's along the same lines, but I think a lot of people get out there and they feel really bad about the race they had, even though they did finish, and then that stews it. So it's like my philosophy on just about everything is like, don't think about it. It's just, it can be there, but like, don't harp on it because it becomes stronger. And, I was talking to an athlete who did New York, and he just had a really terrible run, and he was starting to question his ability to be tough and get through things or whatever like that. And I just said, well, you got to look at every single race as that, we pay to do this, and we pay to go out and suffer and struggle and do hard things in this, kind of a controlled environment. So what are you going to take from it, and how are you going to move forward? It's not, the end of the world. It hurts and it stings and it makes you question yourself. And I think that's the whole purpose. It's like, it's a tough challenge to go through that, I'm sure. It's just that you you nailed it. You got to kind of use it and use it as fuel. And not only that, just like, you can't like harp on it, and it can't be part of you. You got to let it go. And just kind of, this is it's so hard to stay with today. You're racing 6 months from now and you're already thinking about that. And then when it happens, if it doesn't go exactly how you planned it out on TriCalc, it becomes a thorn in your ass for the next 6 months. So it's just like, that's an endless cycle that I think is the part of the thing is kind of getting stronger and being able to move past stuff like that without letting it take you too far down. I mean, I think that's part of the purpose.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, well said. We'll get 2 more questions. 2 more from Cody. For both of you, do you have a favorite podcast you like listening to besides your own, of course? One, I don't ever listen to our podcast.
I told you, man. Let's go. I'll be walking through my mom's house and I'll hear it and I'll be like, what is that? What are you doing?
I hate it. There's nothing more than I hate than hearing myself talk. So no, it's like, you think about like, back in the day when you left, you were the person talking on the answer machine.
Oh my God.
That's comfortable enough. No, I don't ever listen to our podcast.
Remember the first time you spoke into a tape recorder and you heard it back? It was like, please turn that off.
Exactly. Please stop. So no, I don't listen to ours. And so, do I have a favorite other podcast? I don't have a go-to. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I search for guests that I want to listen to, specifically like sports scientists or other coaches. There's not really anyone out there that I just like clamor to like, I can't wait to hear. And that's just it's not because I'm a podcast hater. I'm just not a big podcast guy. I look to read them. I look to podcasts more, again, like I said, more for the guests to get the best, more as like an audio book, like to listen and to learn. I definitely don't look to be entertained. So I don't really have like a huge go-to for those.
You don't?
No, I don't.
That doesn't surprise me.
I was going to say, hey, did you see this? Do you follow this guy on YouTube? I'm like, I don't even like look at YouTube.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and none of them, I don't think any of them have anything to do with triathlon. I try to get away. That's sort of where I go. The world is so interesting, man. I just like exploring it, and I don't even know if I want to say, because I think it's
no, keep it private.
I will.
You don't have to. It's our podcast. You can say whatever you want to.
Yeah, I do listen to a Badger podcast, the Camp Randall.
Oh, the Camp.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But, sorry, we couldn't be helpful for you there, Cody.
Yeah. If you want to know, maybe we can have a conversation.
Yeah, offline. Final one for today. We'll get to the rest of these on Thursday. Stephanie Thomas, who do you think is poised to win Kona this year? That's an excellent question. And I said this. So they just released the start lists for Kona. For obviously, it's just females this year. They just announced it about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think after Ironman, after 70.3 World Championships on our athlete Zoom call, I made the statement, and I have it recorded. I believe Taylor Knibb is going to race Kona, and I believe she is going to win. Well, there have been rumors that she was racing. She's been in Hawaii. Her mom is racing. She's done the PTO distance. She's obviously whipped everyone's ass at 70.3 distance. A lot of people saying, if your big goal is to win the Olympics, which is next year, doing this doesn't make sense, but that's my always thing is like people who say that don't have the stones or they're just they're risk averse and they're not being creative enough. And you know what? I think it can be done. I mean, go back to the two, Gustav Bean and Christian Blumenfeld. No one thought they could go from short course to long course and be that dominant so quick. Now, have they transitioned back to it that well? No, they haven't. But they took the risk to do it. So a lot of people just say things can't be done because they don't have the courage and the confidence and the creativity to see if it can be done. Well, guess what, folks? She's on the start list. And I think this is so fascinating that's going to put in a whole different dynamic. Is a 6 week, and if you're not from a Taylor Knibb, she's an American. She's very young, mostly ITU. The last 2 years, she's done 70.3 worlds, PTO races. When she's on, she whips everyone's ass. She is so fun to listen to. She's kind of like, she's bubbly, she's energetic, she's fun. She's like handing out water bottles and getting towels after she wins. Like after PTO Milwaukee, wipes the floor with everyone. And then she's still upstanding. She's like, people are finishing and like, falling down. She's like walking over to get extra water bottles and wet towels. She's like, I don't know how you could not like her. And she's a front pack swimmer. She is the best cyclist in the sport in front of Daniela Ryf. So if she in fact does toe the line, yes, she probably hasn't had the best buildup. It's not a probably, it's the fact. But I think that also can go in her favor. In that if she's durable enough and just has the enough volume, and I'm sure Brian, her coach, has her right on point. And he has in the last 2 years. And she's always said, I think there was a video of her when she was super young saying, "I'm going to win Kona one day." Really? And so I think if she is healthy, she is going to do what Sam Laidlow did, pretty much lead start to finish. But I think not having those super long runs may hurt. So if she fades, it'll be in the last 10 to 12K. But I think her or Kat Matthews is going to win. But I think just the dynamic that Knibb has out there is going to change the entire game. No questions asked. And it could look a lot like back when Rennie was racing Myrna Carefrey and Daniela Ryf would have like, a 10, 12, 13-minute lead and she would run her down like 14 minutes behind. You could see that from Kat Matthews. You could see it from Chelsea Sodaro. You don't know what kind of form Lucy Charles Barkley is in. She's been, injury plagued here and there, so you don't really know who's peaking. This is, I think, also Daniela Ryf's last race. She's going to retire, but she also just lost her father. There's a lot of unknowns, but I think Knibb's insert in this I think this is going to make it the most watched female race ever. And I think it's going to be, I'm so pumped to watch it race. And I hope an American wins again. But yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. But yeah, my pick is Taylor Knibb. And if not her, I think it's Kat Matthews.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth, man.
I bet I said that.
I mean, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So so
your thunder.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna have to go with Lucy again.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not feeling it.
I've never.
What about Aunt Hog Haig?
I appreciate her.
Haig's gonna run her down.
Who?
Haig. Hog.
Annie Hogg. She's also up there with me. I think she is also poised to have a really, really, really good day. her coach is Annie Hogg's coach is Gian Ferdinand's old coach, or because he's retired. But Dan Lorang. But he also coaches, coincidentally enough, Dan Lorang also coaches Lucy Charles Barkley, which is interesting, like very interesting dynamic. But then you got like Bjorn Giesman, who's the coach of Patrick Lange, who just had like an insanely great performance, like, barely outdone by Sam Laidlow at World Championships, coming in second. He also coaches Cat Matthews. So there's a lot of like really interesting stories going into this year. A lot of athletes have been, hurt, like Lucy Charles Barkley. A lot of athletes are kind of like, had a couple bad races. Like Chelsea Staros only had like maybe one or two really, really good races. Then she's kind of fallen apart in some of the other ones. So people are kind of like questioning, was last year like a one-hit wonder? Just like they were questioning Sam Laidlow, right? Then you got Daniela Reef, which she's either going to beat everyone by 45 minutes or she's going to come in 13th. You got Cat Matthews, who was on like the ultimate trajectory to win Kona, in my opinion, last year before she got hit by a car in Texas. But now she's showing some like really, really, really great form. I think she had the second fastest run split to Chelsea Zdaro at the PTO Asian Open, or maybe it's a different PTO race, but she's up there. I mean, she won it last year. So Rosario won it last year. Cat Matthews, she's, healthy as far as we know. We're still a couple weeks out. Everyone thinks Laura Phillips going to eventually, it's anybody's game, but I think just the insertion of Nib and how it's going to change the dynamics. If it helps anybody, it probably helps Lucy, because if they come out of the water together, Lucy can kind of not, she always bikes in the front because she swims to the front. She has to do all this work alone. How much can Taylor tow her and, tow her along? And then when does Nib drop the hammer and just say, holla, and I'm out of here? Just like Danielle Reef, she always kind of comes through. She's hanging out and you're like, oh man, is she even going to make a gap? And then the last like 30K, she opens up like a 12-minute lead. And because everyone else kind of like burns their biscuits to stay with her. And then she bridges a gap. They no longer get the drafting effect. And then they're tired in a headwind doing harder work, and they just fade and fade and fade. So I think it's going to be really a really interesting race, seeing how it unfolds. So I'm excited to watch it. But go Taylor Nib, go Cat Matthews.
You're excited, huh?
Yeah, pumped.
I can see. How much of that 9 hours are you going to watch?
I'll watch all of it.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll watch all of it.
I
didn't watch the men's because it was like in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah, that's tough. I know we got to go, but you said something in that made me think. Did you say Ann Hogg and Lucy Charles are coached by the same?
Mm-hmm. They're both coached by Dan Lorang, yeah.
How? That's got to be, it's no big deal, but it's kind of a big deal. How do you handle that, man? Give them the same plan?
No. I bet you they get 80% of the same stuff.
But you know what I'm saying, though? It's like, you can. That's a weird thing. But this sport is a little different than like if it was tennis or something.
Yeah. It's like strategy, and you got, and they're both totally different athletes. Lucy, front pack, best swimmer probably out there, really good biker, okay runner, not okay, but better than okay. But Annie is. Swimming is her worst. Her biking's come along a lot, and her running she's probably one of the best runners in the sport besides Chelsea. So they're totally different. So totally different strategies. But I remember listening to an interview with Dan Lorang. When Lucy talked to him about coaching, he asked Annie basically for permission first, just to make sure that was okay, because they've been like unique. We'll stop here in a minute, and nothing anybody cares. But so Annie Howe was Dan Lorang's first athlete he ever coached, and he was because they were at university together. How crazy is that? They've been together ever since. But we'll get the rest of these on Thursday. A lot of other good questions to get to. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Appreciate you tuning in and listening. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching the rest of the year, or exploring getting coaching, and most importantly, being a part of an awesome team and community for 2024, click on the coach tab and peruse and look at the coaches that we have that are right for you. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me, I'm available, c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, 7:17 in the books.
In the books. See you on Thursday for 7 on 8.
All right, man. See you.
See you, dude.